You can't imagine, the FCC is at it again, and in this video, we're gonna get into it. I just did a video about the FCC and their shenanigans with the 900 megahertz band.
Our shenanigans are cheeky and fun.
Yeah, I mean, his shenanigans are cruel and tragic.
Which makes them not shenanigans at all, really.
Evil shenanigans.
I swear to God, I'll pistol whip the next guy that says shenanigans.
And how that could affect us, well, here's one that's probably been a little lesser known, but at the same time, possibly much more impactful. So I don't know how this wasn't reported on more, but today we're going to talk about the Legato network and its potential impact on the GPS and weather satellites. So if you're not aware, Legato Networks is a company that wants to build a nationwide 5G network using a part of the radio spectrum called the L-band. And this band is extremely useful because it can travel long distances, penetrate through clouds, fog, and even trees. So Legato first submitted their application to the FCC way back in 2011, and through multiple amendments and even a company name change in 2015, the FCC unanimously approved their application on April 22nd, 2020. Legato plans to use its portion of the spectrum to build a low-power, terrestrial, nationwide cellular network capable of supporting 5G and IoT services, and IoT is Internet of Things. This approval is a great accelerant for Legato to establish its 5G network and to establish it as an American rival to the Chinese 5G companies. Legato's system is described as a satellite and ground connectivity solution for industrial customers via custom private networks. But here's where things get a little tricky. The L-band is also used by GPS satellites to provide precise location and timing information. And that's not all. Weather satellites also rely on this band to monitor the planet's climate and weather patterns. The Legato network was approved to cover 40 megahertz in the 1.6 gigahertz band, which neighbors the high-precision global navigation satellite systems users like the GPS L1 signal used by US military and civilian systems. Also with that, NOAA's Advanced Technology Microwave Sounder, ATMS, if you've ever seen that abbreviation, and that's an instrument in satellites that collects water vapor by sensing changes to the 23.8 gigahertz emissions. And this is the only frequency that can collect this data. And guess what? As part of this deal, the FCC auctioned off radio spectrum for the 5G network in the 24 gigahertz band, which NOAA says is so close to it, it could interfere with their weather prediction data due to an up to 77% loss in data. So really the big concern here is that Legato's powerful 5G signals could interfere with weaker signals from the GPS and weather satellites. They tried to paint the picture that it would basically be like trying to hear a whisper in a rock concert. That's what it would be like for these satellites trying to communicate with devices that are on the ground. Legato's accepted request came only after it amended its application to decrease the transmission power of its antennas by 99.3%, which the FCC said they would monitor by ground station levels. So to have their decrease in power to the point that they're only keeping 0.7% of what they wanted just seems absolutely insane. And some experts argue that even this is not enough. J. David Grossman, the executive director of the GPS Innovation Alliance, stated that this approval appears to ignore the well-documented views of the expert agencies charged with preserving the integrity of GPS, specifically the ones that are on critical issues of what constitutes harmful interference. Now, even greater than that expert, the U.S. Department of Defense has been the most vocal organization to oppose the FCC's decision. The DoD has argued that Legato's network would serve as a disturbance to GPS signals, possibly negating the civil and military applications of the GNSS networks. Officials also warned that the competing Legato signals could render current GPS technology inadequate, forcing early upgrades of current GPS receivers that lack protection against jamming and unintentional interference. And the DoD went on to further say that providing this license to Legato would cause an unacceptable operational impacts and adversely affect the military's use of GPS, and how this would be a threat to the national security and the fact that they rely on GPS satellites for critical information, precision timing and navigation, and thousands of weapon systems that are embedded with GPS signals. And if that weren't enough, the Air Force also put a memo out, and it warned of the added burden on military systems if the plan was approved. The memo was signed by multiple federal agencies, including the Army, the Navy, the FAA, the Energy and Justice Departments. Commercial entities have also weighed in and expressed their disapproval of this decision. Delta Airlines, Southwest Airlines, Lockheed Martin, the Iridium Communication Incorporated, and FedEx have all spoken out against this FCC's approval. So needless to say, since 2011 to 2024, there has been a lot of debate about this. On one side, you have Legato and their supporters who argue that this network is essential for advancing 5G technology and keeping the US competitive in the global market. And This is because you have to realize when the 4G spectrum was created, things like Snapchat, FaceTime, Uber, and autonomous driving, none of that existed. But on the other side, you have the Department of Defense, GPS manufacturers, and weather agencies who are worried about the potential for harmful interference. So what is the solution to all this? Because clearly this is a complex issue that requires careful balancing of technological advancement and the protection of critical services. The most recent update I could find was March of 2024, and here, Legato is suing the DoD, the Department of Commerce, and the National Telecommunications and Information Administration for $40 billion.
$1 million.
So it's needless to say that while we're safe for now, this debate is most likely far from over. But what do you think? Should we just push forward with the 5G at the risk of interfering with all these essential services, or should we play it safe? And what do you think will be the next band spectrum that the FCC just decides to auction off to the highest bidder? Let me know in the comments, and with that, be safe.